to win a senatorial seat is now between 1.2 billion, 1 or 2 billion. You need that to win a Senate seat. Once you have found the person corrupt, take everything. You know all those plea bargains that we hear of?
Yeah.
Let's not have plea bargains anymore. Government brags about recovering 2 billion, 3 billion from a governor that was collecting nearly 1 billion every month. If you do not have a census, how do you know what to budget for education for a particular side? We've been blindly budgeting for everything in this country. Speculative budgeting is what we've been doing. When Buhari said, if you catch anybody stealing ballot boxes, you can shoot them. There were people who were protesting, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. But you see, if we are beginning to protect people who do things wrong, then we're beginning to have problems as well.
Who's the one comedian you can't stand?
There are about 3 of them. And they have no decorum.
Alibaba, our recent conversation elicited quite a considerable response. There were issues of supreme interest to individuals. And, you and I were talking about, and the thing about conversations, some people will feel about it this way, others will feel about it that other way, but clearly there is predominant consensus. There are a lot of things that need talking about in this country, and though we talked about quite a lot, it's like it's inexhaustible, the things that need to be talked about. We didn't even touch education at all.
Sure.
On that occasion. And education, they say, is the bedrock of any society.
Of every.
Yeah, and I just felt we'd probably touch on a couple of things we've talked about before, but since there's so much to talk about, the whole education thing in Nigeria, I just felt we need to go there and really elaborate on what the problems are, and most importantly, the implication of what we have as an educational system now on the real world.
Of lack of it.
The lack of it on the real world, the decisions that people make, their trajectories in life, in relative comparison with other parts of the world. And I know it's something that you care about. Sometimes that even befuddles the mind. I was wondering what your thoughts are.
Okay, so for me, really, the biggest problem that we have in Nigeria is actually the lack of education. It is not poor education; it is a lack of it.
That's different.
Yes, it's different. Poor education is that you're getting some, but you're not getting quality education. It's a lack of it. First, to start with, people letting stuff that shouldn't teach people how to live become what people look at. And I'll give an example. It is that if somebody is... So people learn from what they see. That's an education as well. They say that if somebody touches something and it burns him, he learns.
He never forgets.
If somebody sees him touch that thing and gets burned, the person that sees him learns. If somebody writes about that experience of how touching that thing burns anyone, you then learn from a third-party experience. So the first party is the person that touches it directly. The second person is somebody who sees him touch that thing.
The observer.
And then the third one is when the person shares the experience, even when you were not there or you were not that person, but you have that experience and then you share it. So people learn from it. We were not there when Jesus was born. The people who were there wrote about it and we read about it. So the parents of Jesus experienced his birth. The people who heard about it and went there shared the experience. Those who went there saw firsthand. The people who gave birth to Jesus had him, and so they had the experience. Then people who then wrote about it then made us know about it. Now, what is happening is we have let our society become one where the power of education has been weakened to the point where we learn from the stuff that we shouldn't learn. Back in the days, why did our parents want us to read those major courses? You either read accountancy, engineering, law, medicine, and of all those courses, the reason our parents wanted us to read them is because they could see people doing well. So in a sense, it's an education, because what you see then informs a better decision. Now, we are now in a society where that better decision is not even given to people. So you don't give them what they need to think right. You don't give them what they need to choose right. You don't give them what they need to be well informed to do right. Basic examples. Don't throw things out of the car. People do it
a lot.
And if you tell anyone in a bus, the question he'll ask you is, are you the government? Or some of them will get violent. Come and make me pick it up.
And now your papa get the road.
Now your papa get the road. Don't steal ballot boxes. Don't snatch ballot boxes. And then you are told not to do so. But you still do it. There's a case right now of a trailer with a container that ran into a barrier that says that tanker or any truck above this height can't go past this place. You look around the society and you just see examples of it everywhere. Give another example. Okay, for this one, they told you don't drive on the opposite lane. Don't drive against one way. But the person drives against one way. Why is the person driving against one way? Is it because the person feels like he's not educated enough, or can't? But you just see society just keeps dwindling in education. And then you then have policies. Your policies don't drive quality education, and so people can't get it. As your policies don't drive quality education, let me give you one. You had a system where if 32 people are in a class and 28 fail, they repeat. Back in the days, they will all repeat.
They will all repeat because they all failed.
They all failed. But these days, you've made it in a way that if 32 people repeat, the school feels that it will be bad reputation for them that their students are failing, and help push them through to the next class. Because the school also wants to admit new entrants so they can continue making the money. You then have people who then give licenses to these people to set up schools without proper groundwork. Back in the days, before you go to school, you get a prospectus.
Yeah.
You must have this, you must have that, you must have that. They don't do prospectus anymore. As long as you can pay, you get your admission. And that's what is beginning to create the rot. And the rot is permeating into every aspect of our society.
So you have graduates, but they do not really qualify. You know, in our days, for instance, unemployable.
Yep.
We used to, there was something else that they used to call promotion on trial, where you weren't great, but they're giving you a last chance. Maybe you were manageable, but they expected you to do better. And back in the day, if an entire class, I remember when I was in, I think, primary 4 to primary 5, for the first time in my set, the entire class passed. It was a bit of a party, a celebration. And because of that, our teacher in primary 4 was promoted with us. They kept us all together to primary 5. Yeah. It was a big thing. You don't see any of that these days.
Now what people do is and let me backtrack. I asked one woman one time, I said, you said this boy's result is very bad. Let him repeat. And she said, so I'll pay another school fees again for the same class. So you see, the economy is now beginning to affect how the mother is reasoning and wondering, should I repeat this because the child failed? Should I repeat the fees that I paid for that same class? You've heard of parents who pay for people for exam malpractices so that their children can pass. You've heard of people going to give money to lecturers so that students can graduate.
Whether they deserve it or not.
You've heard of cases where if the governor, like Oshomole, went and queried why a head teacher in a school couldn't read, and the NUT was up in arms that if he tries it, he will not get his second term election. El-Rufai tried it. In his own case, he said he wanted people who were qualified to teach subjects and you cannot be a teacher in a school and be needing to be taught. So we have plenty of teachers that need to be taught, because the thing is, the process of preparing people to be teachers is even flawed. You go to teacher training colleges, you find that it is the dropouts, those dropouts that couldn't make universities, who had just 2 credits, that are now finding a way to, let me just get, because I need to get a job. So they manage to get into, so you go.
And they become tomorrow's teachers.
Yes, they become tomorrow's teachers because, and then when they go to that school, they find teachers who are also lacking proper teaching method. And then they just push them on till the next class. Now, these people then become, there's sometimes you go to some schools and have you not seen videos of people doing matriculation that can't even distinguish between a discipline?
There's one I saw. I don't know if producers can put it up. There's a young girl at a matriculation. And, they asked her, what's the difference between matriculation
and convocation?
In fact, it was matriculation or graduation. The guy did not even say convocation.
Yeah.
And she went back and forth. She had absolutely no idea.
Exactly. And most times, these same kind of people will continue pushing themselves through school and graduate. You see people who are at NYSC, youth corpers, who are serving. And they come for interviews because you say, okay, I need about like 3-4 coppers in my broadcast station. You invite them and then they come and say, you read mass comm? I said, okay. So can you write news? Can you edit news? What can you? And he said, nothing. Because these people just push. Some of them, the 4 walls of the university is supposed to help you build your mind.
Alibaba, it will shock you. A couple of years ago, I had to tell my team that I literally put a freeze on mass comm.
Oh, okay.
Even mass comm interns.
On the usual suspects.
Yeah. and that's me, a media executive. It's a media organization. And I now realize that I used to have, again, I guess the kind of students that studied courses that demanded certain kinds of rigors.
Sure.
Somebody in the sciences or in engineering, they would come for whatever reason, they would end up here. And they will become more, how do you say it? And the mass comm students themselves are usually...
They're like greenhorns when they come.
Yeah, totally bereft.
People who should hit the ground running now needs to be. There's some,
and you wonder what are they being taught?
Exactly. Now, a friend of mine had said that in their bank, she said in their bank, they recruit these people who have read banking and finance and retrain them. And the cost of retraining them, that cost is now borne by the bank. And then when these people have been properly trained, groomed and prepared for this, they are pushed. It happens in broadcast organizations as well. What is happening is people do not want to pay for trainings. People do not, they want the finished products. And then when these finished products are taken out of a place, it leaves a vacuum, and getting people to replace them becomes
it's hard,
an uphill task.
And because of that, some employers are holding back from training them, which is penny wise, pound foolish.
Sure.
They're so afraid that by the time I'm done training, other people just comes and poaches.
So some people do contracts now. They say, if we train you, you would have to work with us for 5 years. It happens in football.
Yeah, it does.
You sign somebody and you tell the person, you will be with us for 6 years. And you put all that you have into that player.
Otherwise, you can't work elsewhere, especially in a competition.
Which was why Ozil was in Arsenal for a while, was getting paid, but he couldn't go anywhere. Was even earning more than players who were on the field. So what is the problem? It is that we've had administration after administration after administration that did not think that education was necessary. And I'll say that. Don't forget that the military were part of the problem as well. If you remember, most of the biggest of the schools were built by the first wave of politicians.
True.
And those ones felt that education was necessary. You think Tafa Balewa would want the North to be like this? Sadana of Sokoto will want the North to be like this. Maitama Sule will want the North to be like this. No. These were people who were educated. Look at the crop of people that you see from the North who benefited from education. It didn't stop them from practicing their religion. But every step that you find somebody who wants to push religion in front of you. Can you imagine, say you want to shut schools down for Salah? Now, when they don't get the education they need within that time, do you think WAEC will say, because these people had a break in Salah, the questions they would get should not cover their curriculum? Of course, it will cover the curriculum. So how do you make up for that? Especially when the children were already struggling. And somebody comes up with that kind of policy because they want to please the populace instead of educate the populace. I feel that some politicians are very happy when people are not well trained. I listened to someone speak one time, Ali Muzuri, and Ali Muzuri said, most African dictators leverage on the lack of education of the populace to rule. Why? When the person is not educated, their aspirations are low and limited.
And so are their expectations.
And so if the expectations are low, it is that if you just give us a market square, even if it's an earth road, but we can ride our bicycles on it, we're good. Bicycles don't need tarred road. But if the person is now trained enough to buy a car, he will tell you that he needs a tarred road to use that car. If the person is well educated enough, that's when the person will tell you we need a mall. We need pressured water, not just water. The pressure of the water must be strong enough. The quality of the water must be good because you have water.
And air travel.
Because you have education.
Air travel should be accessible to all.
How come there's no airport in our town? But if the person is not educated, a bus stop is okay. A car park is okay. A bus terminal is okay. But as their aspirations grow, as they get educated, their aspirations and expectations grow. So it's best to leave them as they are. Which is why when you do out of school children, the numbers are increasing greatly. I don't know if you've seen the numbers of children who flood the front of Church of Assumption. When you drive through that Awolowo Road, they are all there begging for food to eat. And you see these children, we know the part of the country that some of them are from. But some people will tell you, why are you mentioning? Until recently, I was a part of a group. And I said, the problem we have is that these children that are not educated are going to be a problem for this country in a short while. From the age of 15, you don't train them. Or from the age of 2 to 15, you don't train them. By the time they become 15, teenagers, and it means that their ignorance becomes a problem that blocks their vision, that stops them from being full citizens, that makes them not even understand road signs. For instance, if you say this is a zebra crossing, the reason you put the zebra crossing there is that if a car is coming and you see somebody walking through that place, you stop. But the uneducated mind will be like, can't you see this car can kill? You actually should stop and let me pass.
You say, but zebra crossing, you say, are you a zebra?
Exactly. So, most times, or when you tell someone that rape is a crime, and he tells you, but she came to my house, it doesn't matter. Education is the only thing that can help somebody understand that rape is rape.
Or she wore short skirts. It was provocative. And it gave you the right
to do that. It's the same reason you see when you then try to correct someone who drives against one way. The people in the bus will tell you, "Oga, go your way." Because there are people in the bus.
Including overspeeding.
Exactly.
You'll be the lone voice saying, "Oga, slow down." Everybody will be like, you go sleep here.
I was driving one day and I told the guy, I said, if you are driving this slow, why are you not on the slow lane? And the soldier man that was in the car told me, come and make him now.
Whoa.
Because you find, there's this English, you say, bad Turinchi. That's
no English.
No English. Boko Haram. And no education. No to education. You find all these things everywhere these days, and people are accommodating it. Meanwhile, there's a big problem that I need to mention. The only currency that we have for communication in Nigeria that is accepted is English language. The reason you and I are talking now is because I can speak English. If you were speaking Yoruba or Ibibio and I'm speaking Urobo, we will not understand ourselves.
Tower of Babel thing.
So the currency for communication has to be defined. And once it is defined, you make sure that everybody then learns. It doesn't mean you shouldn't learn your local language, which is your currency of communication. But it's easy for people to quickly jump at it and say, English is not our mother tongue. Are they speaking English in China? Unknown to them, Mandarin is used to even print physics textbook, geography textbook, chemistry textbook, math, all kinds of subjects. Tell me where you can find a Yoruba textbook that teaches medicine. So it means that it's limited. You have textbooks in French that teach all these subjects. Do you have anyone that teaches any of those subjects in Igbo language? No. So what we need to understand is, first of all, for education to be strong in this country, the basic thing to do is make sure children learn to speak, write, and comprehend.
The language of communication, the language of intellectual thought.
It is important, and it should be made compulsory for children. It doesn't say you shouldn't learn your language, your mother tongue. You can learn it, but the language, it still has to be English language. It should be taught.
Some years ago, I went to Lebanon, and I realized that every single educated person, I could be exaggerating, speak 3 languages. Every single educated person speaks 3 languages: English, French, and Arabic. And it's everywhere. Everywhere.
And French was because of the colonial masters.
Yes.
Now,
the English one surprised me.
Yeah.
If you are educated, you speak English, you speak French, you speak Arabic, and Arabic or a version of it. But you went in and out of those 3 languages.
True. Now, do you, even in the United Nations, Eugenia Abu told me something one time. She said she went there to be a translator, English translator. And she found out that they were paying her less. But they were paying people who spoke Spanish, English, and any other language.
French.
More than her. And she was asking them, why the difference in remuneration? And they were like, how many languages did you speak? She said English. She said, yeah. Here, you are nearly an illiterate. Because you must communicate with people in the outside world.
True.
You find that one of the, in fact, the language for trading in Nigeria now is either pidgin English or English language. When you meet someone who's selling sugarcane and he can't speak English and you want the sugarcane, there's already a barrier in communication. The transaction will probably fail, or you then find someone who can rescue both of you and say, oh, he said it is 4 naira. And you say, okay, tell him that I'll pay only 3 naira. And the man says, no, that he didn't get it for 3 naira. He bought it for 3 naira, 50 kobo. So 50 kobo is his gain. All of that, he can't tell you because he doesn't understand the language. So that limits his speaking English first. He's doing business, first of all, in any part of the country, whether it is Hausa, Igbo, which is why you find a lot of those people who do businesses in the Southwest, they trade with pidgin English. Even somebody who speaks English, when you go to the market, you come down to the level and speak the pidgin English if you want to buy anything that you want to buy.
Yeah.
Sometimes speaking English may even drop, push the prices up until you then come to that level.
Certainly.
What I'm saying is, the people who argue and say English is not our language, you need to have tests before you begin to want to ban anything. Oh, let them not be teaching English in our schools. So what language would you use to teach chemistry?
You'll be shocked at places you will go and they can't even speak pidgin.
They can't. Even in the places they speak pidgin, they get by, but they can't even read. Just like you can go to I went to hall and we were talking with one man. I told him to write his name. And the man said he can't write it. It's an Oyibo man. He speaks the language well, but he couldn't write. He couldn't write. This is an English man. He can't read. He can't write. But his mother tongue is English language, so he can relate and speak with you.
Yeah.
But he can't write.
There are a lot of them like that in the US.
They can't write. So what it means is that for you to communicate, you must read, write, and comprehend.
There's this video I saw. And this was the UK. Native speakers. If you...
Cockney.
Yes, native speakers. And they were asking them, I shared it with my kids. They were asking them, what is the past tense of go?
Simple.
One of them said, went. Another one said, past, it was past tense, something like that. What is the past tense of go? And one of them said, is come. You mean it? Said, yeah, now go. Come. And it was shocking because they had this thing written on it, this subtitle. I said, so much for native speakers of language. And so it's not enough to be able to speak the language.
Let me use that now in driving home a point. You see, when Brexit happened, a lot of the people that voted for Brexit to happen were not educated. You see some of those black cab drivers in London, they're not educated. They're British for a reason and illiterate for another reason. They can't speak the language. And so when Brexit happened, without understanding the consequences of pulling out of the union, that happened. And now the consequences are what they're bearing. Even now, with the Trump issue, you said people should leave.
Oh, okay.
Tariffs, people should leave. And so Mexicans left. They said there were a lot of farmlands in the countries that people could not milk cows, because the people who were milking the cows were these Mexicans who could do the work, because the true born American was not going to do that job.
Yeah, not just the farmlands. There were many stalls that there was nobody to do the job. Yeah.
So what it means is not just about businesses. It's about interpersonal relationships. When people are educated, you can know where the limit and borderlines are when you're having conversation with people. It is not about just to open your mouth and speak. You need to have the decorum to understand that there are certain things you can't say to some people. Empathy. If you do not understand a language or speak it, or you are not educated enough, it is hard to relate with people outside your circle. Even the people in your circle will have conflicts with you. Age is another issue. If you know, well, most children these days will not understand. After the war, the civil war in Nigeria, when some students started coming back to school, Some of the students that were coming were much older than us that were in class. Those that fought in the war or were denied. So when they now come to the class, you now see a child, you're not a child, you see somebody who comes to class and the person is about like 16 in a class that you have like 10 years. Students, the pupils are 10 years, and you find somebody who is like 16 because this guy looks like much older than everybody.
Yeah,
in the class.
in primary school, there were a couple of guys that none of us could call by their first names. We used to call them, but that one thing, but that,
Yeah, exactly.
but that this auntie, that other thing.
Because there was a truncated space. There's a space that they could not get the learning that they needed. And then by the time they realized that there was need for them to get the education, it was too late. But now, well, it wasn't too late. Time had gone and they're beginning to catch up. That's why you then find that, well, that was when they then started adult education, so some people can catch up later. But it affects the total productivity of the country. Some of these politicians don't know that. Some of the politicians know, but prefer it. Because if somebody is educated and has a good job, would you find him to go and bust pipelines? If the person is educated, would you find him to go and be a thug during elections? Because they know the consequences. In spite of the fact that when Buhari said, if you catch anybody stealing ballot boxes, you can shoot them. There were people who were protesting. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. But you see, if we are beginning to protect people who do things wrong, then we're beginning to have problems as well. We have a big problem with patriotism now because most of these people who do not even comprehend the policies of government are not educated. And backtrack. You know, the way religion penetrated was education. There were people who had Bibles translated to their mother tongue just for them to be able to follow religion. Islam came with Arabic and it was taught so that they could follow the religion.
The Bishop Ajayi Crowders who
And
literally
Macaulay
people who translated the Bible into Yoruba and other local languages.
These people did that because they wanted to permeate the society. And education was the best bet. And they used that education to get in. And they also needed staff. The missionaries needed staff. If you do not train the people, you can't get them to do the work that you needed to do. Administrative jobs and cleaning and all. You needed to communicate to them. And they had to teach them the language. I believe that where we got it wrong was where we now started thinking that we did not need that education. If you say you don't need that education, you then need to develop yours like the Mandarin.
Yeah.
Like French, like Russia, and push it to the point where it now becomes a language that you have texts in.
A national lingua franca.
Which is why the missionaries made sure there were texts in the local languages so that people could read and understand the story of Christianity better.
Was Nigeria doomed from the start? Because when you really look at it, the way the country was patched together, was there a chance? There was division already. Some would say pidgin should have been it. But others would tell you that at that time, even pidgin was near non-existent because nobody was speaking broken English like that.
From the part of the country that I came from, pidgin was the best way for us to relate because we had so many tribes. For instance, your Kwale, this guy is Edo, this guy is Ijo, this guy is a Shekiri, and Murobo. If we were all speaking our language, we would not connect.
True.
And because we did not even know how to speak the correct English, it was best to find a way, which was what happened during the slave trade. During the slave trade, the slave traders, they were picking people from different places, all the way from Cape Town down to Sierra Leone. All the people they picked, the Ashantis, the Ijos, the Calabaris, the Urobos, and all the people that you picked, and you lump, and then Zulus, you lump everybody into people in Djibouti, you lump everybody into a sheep. Now, I'm sitting next to somebody who spoke Kalabari. I'm Urobo. I say, Mavo, the guy doesn't understand. We then have to find a way to talk, which was what led to Africans gesticulating a lot. We now had to try to help the words with our hands. Now, we then grew up together in that slave farm and started learning the language of the masters.
In its broken form.
That's what it was. That broken English that we were speaking there, the corrupted English that we were speaking there, helped us to relate with one another, which was what led to how jazz music was created by the Africans. Jazz music was created because I couldn't speak your language, you couldn't speak your language, you couldn't speak mine, but the thing is that we could play the musical instrument. So we start playing musical instruments for a long time, and then after a while, one of them will pop a chorus that he remembers from folklore. We'll add it to the song and go back to instrumentation, which explains why after slave trade, nearly all the people who played musical instruments in the farm during slave trade moved to New Orleans and bettered the new wave of jazz music and unspoken music, music without words, because the language had to first of all be taught and understood. It gave leverage to people like, you watch the movie Django.
Yes.
Where Samuel L. Jackson.
Unchained.
Yes, Unchained. And Samuel L. Jackson made his way into the house.
Jamie Foxx.
The reason they made their way into the house was because they learned the language and they could communicate with the master. The master then felt like, yes, I could relate with this. I need a glass of wine. You bring it. But if the one that is uneducated comes and can't speak it, big problem. And parents who were working on the farm made sure that their children learnt the language.
To give them a head start on life.
Because if the masters felt that you could speak the language, you got an edge over any other person that couldn't speak the language. That's the thing that is happening in this country now. So you find that people know the importance of education and want to get it for their children anyhow. So you see our parents, then they could sell the clothes off their back just to make sure that a child got an education. Because when the child gets an education, he will save them from the penury that they were in. But you see, when the military came, they felt education was not as important. And subsequent, the Jakonde time was where they could do free education. I benefited from free education in Lagos. But the people who benefited from that free education did not want to go back to it. The military did not benefit from free education. Don't forget that most of the people in the military were dropouts. Most. The few who were not dropouts, the Odumegwu Ojukwu, the General Ike Nwachukwu, Maman Vasa, and the rest were very few and far between. And those people were part of the reasons that you had the command secondary schools. Because they felt their children needed education as well. Look at the people in the north. A lot of them who had tasted education made sure that their children went to school. Not Islamic schools. Not Ilekeu. They wanted their children to go to proper schools so that the children could compete in a larger society. These days, you find people who say, leave them like that. When the Amajiri matter started, Jonathan wanted to do something about it. Started doing something about it, but his second term didn't come through. And so it was abandoned. But these people, if they do not get the education that they needed, they can't fit into the larger society. We have gone past the point where people even did shorthand and longhand. Now we're now in the AI era, where technology is king. How many of these children can do coding? We have subjects that should not even be taught in schools anymore. A rejigging of the curriculum, total curriculum, teaching method and all of that are all wrong. But we just keep going like that. And then budgetary allocations to schools. Do you think there is a government that is coming that will build anything like UI again? Or Unilag?
Or UNN?
Or UNN? No. Because education is not priority for certain administration. And then the little one that you then find that maybe Afe Babalola and some other people are the ones that are now donating faculties to these schools because they would rather just leave it as it is. Don't forget that back in the days, in UI, in Unilag, one student will have a room to himself. These days, you have like 6, 7 people in a room.
And back then, you didn't even make your own bed. There were stewards who would come in.
And you had meal tickets. And you had meal tickets. You just go to the place and you decide, oh, I want to do 010 or do 101. But now, getting a meal is a task. We need to go back to the point where we say, okay, if we want this country to grow, we need to go back to educating our people. Look at the issue of ranching.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Now, basically, ranching is what can make the people who have these cows make a lot more money.
We'll save a lot of trouble about cow herders and farmers.
Exactly.
A lot of lives will be
because
saved.
You do not have water in some places for irrigation, for taking care of all these animals, planting, whatever they can use as feeds. Now, they decided to take the cows and graze across the country. But with this kind of economy, this animal business, this business of selling cows, if you had a ranch, your animal skin, the pomo, will even be softer. But these cows trek from Maiduguri. The ones that have money will put them on a trailer and ship to the south. But some Fulani herdsmen will put them all the way through. And the education is so important that the Fulani man doesn't see the need for you to stop him from grazing his cows.
On your farmland?
Leave farmland in the middle of town. Because he feels anywhere is a go. You can't graze cows that don't have trafficators, don't have brakes, all this, and then you are just doing and with your stick and controlling them, and then they block a whole driveway or road, and people have to wait for the cows to leave the road.
What I don't understand is that this is not a new problem. There are already templates. I mean, where do people think the term cowboy came from? It was a problem that the West, America had this problem a long time ago, and they found a solution for it. So the template is already there. So why is it so difficult for us to find
Because the kind of politicians that we have are the type that want to win elections. The few that want to make impactful change in society are either not given the time or chance. You find a case where somebody says, oh, this road will benefit us if we make this road link this village and link that other village. People who do farm work can get their products to so and so place and get them. What was the reason for building trains in Southern Rhodesia back in the days through Zimbabwe, Namibia, all the way to South Africa, so that you can put products on ships? Because there were no road networks at the time. It was because the trains will open up the land. Even in Nigeria, it was the same thing. When Rotimi Amechi was transport minister, the biggest challenge, I'll give you one example, and it is the Costain Bridge. You see how long it took to build that Costain Bridge? Because they needed to raise the bridge. So the rail couldn't go past that place until they raised the bridge. Because if you have trains now are bigger than they used to be. The tracks are wider than they used to be. So you couldn't use the old tracks and you have to build new tracks. But the old tracks that you had, if you put those trains there, the trains back then, most of those trains don't do more than 20, 30 kilometers per hour. Even the trains we have now could do to 50, 60 kilometers per hour. But They can't. They are not allowed to.
They can, because the
tracks
can't take it.
Exactly. So the bridge had to be raised so that the new trains can pass under it. And that took a while. What is our biggest problem? You have in China, they can close down a track because they've built another one. And then when they go to the other one, this other one, they review and renovate it and make it even better. What we have is politicians don't think ahead. Remember when we had the windfall, when crude oil was selling for $120, $130 per barrel, and they called it excess crude. Jonathan wanted the money to be saved and used later. There were governors who went to court and said, give us the money now.
I remember.
And the money was shared. These days you hear people say...
And was blown.
And blown. And people were saying, oh, what did Jonathan do with the excess crude? But when he went to court, you people heard about it. When he said, no, we can't use the money now. It took a while for Ngozi to even manage to get the sovereign trust account.
Let us eat and drink today, for tomorrow we shall perish.
And say whatever you want to say, most of the governors who were insisting on getting that money then were on their second term. They didn't see any reason for the money to be kept for the next governor that was coming to spend. They collected all the monies. How many? We're still talking education. The UBEC and SUBEC, the Universal Basic Education, it's a counterpart funded project. So if UBEC brings 60 million, you have to bring 60 million for the funds to be accessed. That's why some of them didn't do it. Because they didn't
want to supply the counterpart funding.
What they wanted was the UBEC should give them the 60 million. But UBEC is saying, you want so and so schools, 24 schools. We'll give you the 24 schools. This is our money. Bring your counterpart funding. It is why some states did not activate their UBEC. The state Universal Basic Education, they did not. And the Universal Basic Education is what will improve the quality of education that we have.
You and I would age here if we were, going to, because it's overwhelming. The question is, what can ever be done?
A lot can be done. Policies, first of all. Now, one of the policies that messed up our education system was this
6334. Which we are now veering off, I guess.
We're beginning to learn that it is not so good. You remember there was a time where you had first position, second position, third position. And so first position to 20th position get promoted. And then the others were asked to repeat. And of the 20, maybe 30 people that were in the class, maybe they then say, okay, 5 of you will be promoted on trial. But if we see that you're not improving in that other class, you will come back to this class.
True.
But when you start the 60, it's just like a conveyor belt.
Let my people go.
Just keep pushing them out. Vocational education is important. You go to some schools back then, you had technical departments. You had schools of economics where most of the girls were learning catering, cake making, knitting, embroidery, stitching, and all of those things. But you go to some schools now, they don't even have labs.
True.
Somebody just takes a building.
I was president of JETS in my school. Junior engineers, technicians, scientists, and stuff.
Now, these days you find somebody, once he rents 6 blocks of flats, he has a school. Back then, during the missionaries, every school must have a sports ground. Full football field, not 5-a-side. Full football field that you could do your inter-house sports so that the child is growing physically, is growing mentally, and is growing socially as well. But these days, you find schools where those things are not available.
And because of that, every street had every street had at least one kid
Yeah.
who could make the national team,
Sure.
who was so well known.
Long jump. And think about it. And this is talking sport. As simple as a sport called long jump is, that Chioma Ajunwa got our first gold, we could not work and leverage on it.
Yeah.
What do you need for?
We had to
what
wait
do you need-
forever for Ese Brume to come
What do you
generations
need
after.
for a long jump? Sand and a board. Sand and a board.
That's all.
That's all. And then you find Michael Phelps winning all kinds of medals. But you have people in the Niger Delta who know how to swim. Principal's Cup back then provided a harvest ground for the kind of footballers that you wanted to see. Principal's Cup. But those are not even in operation. Do you remember we had the Mobile Open?
Yeah.
And Mobile Open used to be like an Olympics in this country. After a while, that faded, and nothing replaced it. You had Pepsi. We had Pepsi Higher Institutions Cup back then. I played in Pepsi Higher Institutions Cup. Now that is also gone. I think for us, our national development must hinge on proper education, the basic education, and the absence of it is what we're learning, what we're facing right now.
Sometimes you find that individuals are trying. I mean, you just talked about swimming. There's this Honorable Lanrewaju Said. I was in conversation with him recently, and he was sharing some data he had. This guy and some others like him are committing their time and their resources into building swimmers. And they told me of a kid, how many years now, like an 11-year-old kid who made astonishing time at open sea swimming or whatever it is.
Okay.
Like, and in that conversation, we were like, the potential is just enormous. You only need individuals who will pay attention. And don't forget, all of it still falls under education.
Sure.
That we're talking about. Teaching people, you're giving opportunities to individuals who have natural talent. So you take this talent, you harness it, you concentrate on it, and you build a generation of individuals who will have a ripple effect on society, because each of those successful stories will birth more successful stories, and these individuals become breadwinners for their immediate families.
And lift them from poverty.
Yes, and their immediate communities.
Now,
why does it seem like rocket science to leadership in this country?
You see, leadership. Okay, so what happens? So this one, I'll say maybe they will now go and start calling my phone lines again.
I can imagine what you've gone through
in the last 4 weeks. Yeah. Now, every governor that comes into office has just 2 years. 2 years. The other 2 years, the first one, he uses that first year to settle in, know who's doing what offices to change, either the DG or the person who is running that office is the person in our team.
And perhaps also settle facilitators and
exactly
people who put him there.
Yeah, so all of that first year, that is what he did. And then by the time he decides to now begin to run, don't forget that the budget he's then working with is a budget from the year before when he got into office. Now that budget, the people who got contracts have been settled. And now you then put new commissioners, and the commissioners, which is why you have abandoned projects. So this commissioner comes in and finds that somebody has been awarded a road or building of classrooms and all of that cost about 2.6 billion. And he looks at it and is like, this thing shouldn't cost 300 million. So who were the people that chopped the money? You must complete this project. And those guys are not completing the project. And he say, I'm not paying 1 naira more for this project. And then he abandons those ones and say, because the money did not come, and say 500 should have completed that project. You bidded 1.3 billion. You were paid 700. How come the project is not completed? Which is why you get abandoned projects. All of that then happens all through the first year. The second year, he's now come into full steam and begins to now make policies, make some errors, correct the errors. And then the second the third year that he now really governs, before it ends, the fourth year is for the next election. So most times, the only time you then see governors working full steam is if they get a second term.
Second term. Which is near automatic in this country anyway.
Well, except for Fayose.
Yeah, unless you offend somebody.
Yes. Unless you let them appoint a sole administrator. All right. So our policies are normally one term. Policies are one term. So you remember the time of Jonathan when another governor, when he was made vice president, another governor took over. The man was building a multi-hospital in Bayelsa and kept reminding the governor that was there, complete the place. Now, I'm now vice president, complete this place. That was how they fell out. Because you find that once a new man comes in, he abandons all the other projects other people have done and then continues with his own. Because it feels like if his name has to be on the project for it to affect the next election.
Yeah, which was why Y became Kai.
Just to say that you are doing something.
What's the difference?
Just to say that you're doing something.
War against indiscipline. Kick against indiscipline.
You find one governor comes in and the project that would benefit the people is abandoned. You heard of schools that were built in rivers. By the time the next person came, shut down all the schools till his term of 8 years finished. So what then happens to that investment? Or a policy where people had jumped in and invested money for the sector, and then another one comes and changes the policy, and all the people that invested in that business go bankrupt. Our national development is hinged on education, sure, but it's also hinged on the policies that then affect the people. Like this issue of universities, it should be there that if you do not have these, that, you can't get to university. You have mushrooms universities shooting up everywhere, coming up everywhere. Now, those universities will then give certificates. No matter how bad the certificate, because it's a degree, it has to be respected. It depends on how, when the door is now open and you now say, okay, prove this degree that you have, it becomes a problem. We are in a society, we are in a certificate-driven society. Once somebody presents a certificate, they feel like you should honor it. But you say, no.
Yeah.
It is not just about that. Like you were saying now about people who read mass comm.
Yeah.
They come here and they can't even communicate. Talk less of talk to the masses. So you have that problem. You still have the problem of religion. One of my friends said the other day, he told one of his staff to walk out of his office, came with one chosen outfit worn on, and he said, what's this? He said, oh, it's my church. He said, this is not part of the official wear. Oh, they're trying to stop him from practicing his religion. And said, if it is a hijab, will you tell the person not to wear? They said, let him. After a while, they let him go. You then have people who want to use religion to becloud their failures. And even this is a Geo that told me this story. He said somebody in his church was told by his MD to do a job from Friday to Saturday. And the person said because they were doing camp, he couldn't do the job. So the MD got somebody else to do the job. When he came to work on Monday and said, yes, he has done the job, the man said, no, somebody else has done it, and fired him. The DO asked him, couldn't you have joined online? Sometimes some people feel like the fact that they belong to a certain religion means that every other person must. You can't let your okay. Would you now, as basic as this sounds, but it's the truth. Every Muslim prays 5 times. a day should pray 5 times a day. So if you are a pilot and you are taking people from Lagos to Abuja, would you say because your religion says you must pray 5 times and let them hang the flight?
You can engage autopilot.
Yeah, you can. You can engage autopilot, or they should wait for you to finish the prayers before you fly them on a scheduled flight. So you must know how to bend the rules, because you can't push your religion on other people. Religious tolerance is a very important thing. But the thing is, if you're not educated, you cannot even factor religious tolerance into how you live your life.
So education is fundamental to many of these conversations. And I also want to discuss population census later.
Yeah.
But just to piggyback a bit to what you talked about, governance and what those in government do in terms of projects and all of that personal. There was a joke you told many years ago. I don't know if you'd remember this. It's very profound. That thing is in my head like glue. And you were barely, I thought it was one of these big functions, and you told that joke about 3 people who went for an Igbo man, a Yoruba man, and a Hausa man
to bid for
a contract. Could you share? Because it's very, very profound. It's beyond that joke.
So it's the contract where the first man goes and the Yoruba man goes and says, I will do this contract with about 2 million naira. And then the Hausa guy comes and says, I'll do this contract with about 3 million naira. And then the Igbo guy comes and says, I'll do this contract with 5 million. And they said, but this man said he'll do it with 1 million. This one said he'll do it with 2 million. They said, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Pay me the 5 million. I'll give this one with 1 million. That says he will do it with 1 million. 1 million to do the contract. And then I'll give you 1 million. Then this Hausa man that was supposed to do it, that won't do it, I'll give him 1 million. And I'll take 2 million. The contract will be done. Because the one that said he will do with 1 million could actually do the contract with 1 million naira. But you see, most times it is how it benefits me, and not how it benefits all of us.
At the end of the day, it's not the best hand who gets a contract.
It's just like the census that you hinted on, that I said I want to talk about. If you do not have a census, how do you know what to budget for education for a particular site, a particular state, or a particular zonal geographical zone? You don't know. So we've been blindly budgeting for everything in this country. Speculative budgeting is what we've been doing. I think education would need so and so. I think this one would need so and so. Because when they say plan a census and perfect a census, you don't do it. Last time I posted something and somebody told me to take it down. I said, you are planning an election and you don't have census. Meanwhile, at the time of Jesus, census in Bethlehem was every year.
Every year.
Meanwhile, then they didn't have much people. And the Romans were the ones that were ruling. But the people who were not even Romans were making sure that they fulfilled that thing that the government wanted. Because the government could then know what to do, if there was need to provide more security, if there was need to provide more water wells where people could go, and pools and all those things. Because in the Mediterranean, all those things mattered.
Mm-hmm.
You hear of Jesus at the pool, these people getting to the pool, swimming in the pool, refreshing under the pool. All of those things mattered because water was a scarce commodity.
Jesus' time is even close. Remember when the Israelites left Egypt? The record says there were 600,000 men on foot, besides women and little ones. So census is as old as time.
As old as possible, as you can, as far back as you can go. But you see, what they don't know is that the absence of that census then denies you the opportunity to know how many people are handicapped or have disabilities. How many people are women? How many people are children that you need to provide schools for? How many health centers would this number of people now need? Instead of somebody traveling a distance of 4 or 5 kilometers to get proper health care. Now, back in overseas, you find a case where children can walk to school because you cannot go to school in a place further than where you live. In a radius.
Yeah.
You must go to school in that radius.
Most of it is walking distance.
Most of it is walking distance. And if they then feel like, okay, it's walking distance, but because of traffic and all of that, getting to the school might be difficult, they provide school buses. And the school buses have priority of the road. If they stop, every other vehicle must stop. But what happens is they don't even know. Even the jack on daytime. So you now go back to the jack on daytime to even understand how well governance should be. Jack on Day ran, it provided education, provided housing, water, road network, and most of the civil servants at the time were getting well paid. So what does it say? It is that when you have a good government, things begin to be done properly. Military was one of the things that affected this country greatly because what actually broke this country down was when government decided that regions should not grow at their own pace. When you stopped regions growing at their own paces, it became a problem because the western region was growing, the eastern region was growing, the north was growing as well. But you see, you then said, bring all the money in.
As one equalizing.
Now, the analogy that I use for that is when you have like 6 wives, 4 of them are not working, only 2 are working. And when the 2 bring their salary, you then share that salary amongst everybody. What will happen? The children of the 2 that are working will not get as much benefit of that money that their own parents are.
As their mother's work deserves.
The ones that are not doing anything with them. Which is why you hear now that when the president was trying to bring the regional development plan and saying each state should generate their own funds and pay something to the center. Most of the northern governors and some other states in the south protested.
They kicked against it.
They kicked against it because they know that they can't generate anything to fund the bills that the state generates every month, that the state has to pay every month.
It's not been abandoned, has it?
It hasn't been abandoned, but the first time the thing hit the National Assembly, it fell flat.
It's deliberate, isn't it? This putting the people down, not taking education seriously, not caring about the census, the actual true figures of who. It's deliberate. It serves certain people.
If you remember clearly, the last election that was done, the numbers were objected to by so many people. First, they said it was 260 million. By the time people started showing proof that we were not counted, they didn't come to this thing. They got up to one point and then projected the rest.
Yeah.
There were some numbers they gave them, even like cantonments. The numbers of people, like Ojo cantonment at the time, I had a friend who was there, said they counted some places. And by the time they got to Fin Niger, there's a particular place called Fin Niger. They didn't even go on to count all the other blocks. And by the time those protests started coming in, the number was reduced from 260 to 220 or 230 that we then started pushing up and down till now.
Do you remember when they said we were 88 million?
Long time ago.
Census ago like that.
Yeah.
And I remember that I had seen reports from the 80s that global reports that put the Nigerian population at about 200 million.
At that time.
Then the question is,
okay, so the thing is, at that time that they put the census at 200 million, we had an influx of people from the West African region who were in our country. Don't forget that when the Ghanaians left, our population reduced drastically. and Pakistan. You remember there was a time Pakistanis, Indians were coming to teach in this country. And live in
Certainly.
this country.
Remember.
And there was even a Russian teacher. My piano teacher then, Mr. Do, was from Ghana. There were several people, even some footballers, Edward Ansah.
Yeah,
and
all those guys.
People were coming into this country to live and do business. Because you had projected development and governments saw where they were going. I'll give you an example again. And so you look at refineries. You projected that the North needed a refinery, and you built a refinery in the North and supplied the crude all the way from the South to that refinery.
The Kaduna refinery.
You could also have built water turbines and pumped water from that South to the North, because you already had the right of way, so that your ranching and irrigation and all the development of all this could be done. You don't need anything extra. You just put the pipes on top of that, your crude oil, this thing. Put something metal or something just to hold the boreholes and drill the water and push it off to the North. But they didn't do it, because after a while, it was now about self than the people. When government became about self and not the people, that was when we started having a problem. Even when people talk about the military, some civilian governments were worse than the military. Some civilian governments were worse than the military. When you have a civilian government that a sitting governor is being probed for money, when the amount they are probing him for is the amount of his budget for like a year. A state that doesn't have that kind of money, a state where the governor had paid school fees of his children up to like 2-3 years ahead, you then wonder, so what happened to the people who are in the state? Did you build more schools for them? Did you build more markets? Did you build more malls? Did you build more centers for development, hubs to accommodate the new generation? What have you done that after you left office, people can then go back and say, oh, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that? No. Which is why when some governors leave office, they're not remembered. It's a big problem. So you have let me even talk about this sports. You find that when you think back to the days of Westerhoff, you now begin to see how someone who is not even Nigerian was more concerned about making sure that the Super Eagles grew better, because he had access to the Abachas, had access to make sure that these are the things that I need for my boys. These are the things that I need for my boys. And then you had Akinyele, who was also like fighting to make sure that some of all those things then happened. That has led us to see that if the monies that were voted for our sports were devoted to the sport itself, we will grow. You have a 24 or 34 man Super Eagles team, and the entourage would have 42 administrators that go with them to that match. You have the president going for a meeting. 4 ministers would have to be on that meeting that the president is going for, and the number of people that are going is about like 65. What's wrong with us?
Direct access to the president or the commander-in-chief at the time helped Westerhoff take Nigeria to his first World Cup. Exactly. And you could see the trajectory. None of it happened by chance.
No.
So there was a lot of work, and you could see progress between Manfred Hoeneß, the German, and Westerhoff.
Who leveraged on that.
Who leveraged. You see, in '88, Nigeria did so well at Morocco. at Morocco,
and
the
at those
AFCON.
times there was nothing like tribalism. Oh, you must play somebody from the north, you must play somebody from the south. You could have 6 Igbo boys in the Super Eagles as long as the productivity was there.
As long as they were the best. There's a whole lot. But again, just on the lighter note, because this sometimes it fills you with foreboding, especially since you mentioned football. We'll come back to the issue, but I just want to get your take on this. You're an Arsenal fan. It looks like for the first time in a decade and a half, this looks like the best time to be an Arsenal fan.
Well, I've been an Arsenal fan even before Premiership.
Yeah, no doubt.
I started supporting Arsenal from 1982 because growing up in the barracks, a lot of the military people were supporting Arsenal. My dad was supporting a club that I didn't know whether they were even qualified to be a club, Coventry. And then we'll hear most of the guys in the barracks and the Batmen say, Arsenal drew, Arsenal won. And so they bet, the coupon.
They used to call it, is it pool or something?
Pool. So those pool stakers, the pool stakers will tell you. And so when you hear them listening to VOA or BBC just to hear matches and find out what the results were. And we then met one guy, he was working in Volkswagen at the time, and the guy said he was going to get me a jersey. So he got me an Arsenal jersey in 1982, and I started supporting Arsenal. When Premiership then came, it was now like, okay, we'll support them. And then we supported, and Kanunwako joined.
Yeah, it was a major turning point.
It was a major turning point, and everybody was. So some of our friends who had even left for other clubs, Eastwich, Hall, and they then started coming back. And
my father liked Liverpool because of John Barnes.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of Nigerian boys who still support Liverpool till now.
Yeah.
But one other thing that affected clubs that people supported was going to school in those places.
True.
People who went to school in certain areas then started supporting
the home team. Yeah.
The home team. My daughter schooled in Derby, and she told me she's now a supporter of
Derby County.
Derby County. I said, and they didn't last in Premiership. So I think that sports was a unifying factor for a lot of us. Beyond playing it, going to camp in Afuze, going to Lagos State camps, and then sports competitions were done when schools were on holidays.
True.
So you could use the school facility. But these days, most schools do not even have the facilities that you could use for such competitions. Yabatech used to be a very good ground for higher institutions cup back then, the Pepsi Higher Institutions Cup. And so I followed football, but one of our biggest nights was yesterday when we beat Real Madrid. Their biggest game by far, because the predictions were 10-1.
Yeah,
that Real Madrid would beat us.
Certainly the biggest game of this Arsenal generation, from coach to everybody. Playing in the Champions League final in 2006 against Barcelona and losing. It was
we're cheated. We're cheated out of that because we.
Yes, the question is, I'm not going to let you go off the hook. Do you guys at Arsenal, you think you really want to win the Champions League this season?
Well, they thought we would be beaten by Real Madrid. That's an insight into what we could do. I think that what has put us in this bad position, especially in the Premiership, were injuries, especially the one that happened to Saka. He galvanizes the club a lot. And then Gabriel now getting injured. People now thought, okay, we're over. All right. But see the free kicks that we took. So our free kick coach has has done well. Don't forget that corner kicks used to be one thing for us. It gave us about like 7 or 8 goals.
Yes. Yes.
And
maybe even more.
Maybe exactly. Maybe more.
Several victories.
We believe that most of all those should then begin to come in, so that we're not depending on coming in from the flanks again, like Saka, or because we do not have. Look at our last goal, was nearly outside the 18-yard box. So we need to begin to have those, instead of dribbling. We've been doing that thing of dribbling into the 18 to score.
Yes, they have been the Arsenal way for like forever.
So, but things are changing, and we're sure that even if we do not win the Champions League, we will do very well next season.
In 2006, Arsenal beat Real Madrid and then had to face Barcelona in the
1-0.
final. Yes, over 2 legs.
Yeah.
And this time, it's a 3-0 lead going into the second leg.
They have to beat us by 5-1.
It's not going to happen. And I'm a Real Madrid fan. So it doesn't. So at this point,
don't forget the miracle of Damas.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
They would at least, to even take it into extra time, they need
6 goals at least.
No, not necessarily. 3-0 will take it into extra time.
And we'll be watching them.
But yeah, I mean, at this point now, nobody wants to give away a free kick. And I would say, I heard what Thibaut Courtois said, that the 2 free kicks that gave Declan Rice's goals was glorious. The sheer audacity of those strikes. And if you thought it was by chance, just see the conversation he had with Saka, where he was telling Saka that I'm going to hit this. And Saka said, go for it. Even though even the coach wanted something else.
So the coach has said that he's been hitting them at the training pitch.
Yeah.
He's been hitting those kind of goals at the training pitch.
Thibaut Courtois was unhappy that those were unnecessary free kicks to even give.
Yes, yeah. But that's what then happens. There's even cards that are given to some players. It's a man's game.
Yes, certainly.
It's a body contact game. So there's certain free kicks that are given, and you're wondering, should that have been a free kick? The commentators even lament and say, no, I don't think that's a free kick. There was a game between Hull and was it Man United or so? Against I'll try and remember the name. And they had these 2 free kicks at the time that Wigan. And they had these 2 free kicks that were given at like 92 minutes and penalties, and they were thrown out.
True.
Watford.
I think there was one game like that where the penalty was missed and it became a counter move.
Yes, exactly.
And the defending team went and scored the winner.
So most times referees also contribute greatly to the turn of events. I believe that, personally, some of those offsides that are called should not be allowed. Because just that half my elbow
or your jersey
or my jersey pulled out and you draw the line and it caught my jersey. Oh, come on.
It's ridiculous. It's killing the game, and that's that's my thought.
That's our opinion. Yeah.
Certainly this is the happiest you've been since the era of the Invincibles as an Arsenal fan, isn't it?
Well, yes. No. We also have, when we beat Liverpool.
Yeah, you won 2 FA Cups, I think, 2 or 3.
Now that's the other thing. When we win those FA Cups, all the other clubs feel like, what is FA Cup? Come on, nothing. But when they win it,
Alibaba, nobody cares about you winning FA Cups, man. I'm a Real Madrid fan, but I don't care about the Copa del Rey.
Really?
Yes.
But when they win it, they climb on the bus and drive through town.
Yeah, but who remembers Man City and their FA Cups? It is big when a small team wins it. When Portsmouth won it was a big deal. But if you're an Arsenal, you're a Chelsea, you're a Man United.
What we expect is when Man U, Chelsea, Tottenham, or anybody wins the FA Cup, don't celebrate it because it's a small cup.
Yeah, because again, look, let me tell you, these guys are big teams. If Man U wins the FA Cup now, they'll probably celebrate because they're not that big anymore. right now.
They are not.
They have big pedigree, it's muscle memory. But right now,
13 is still big. You're not in relegation.
Papa. I mean, there are people who will vilify me for this, but man, you are not big right now. What they are big. They are big all time. But reputationally, they are big. But in the last 5 years, they've been a small team, maybe even longer.
And Newcastle is even bigger than them. Now it's a shame.
Yeah, and Arsenal has been in that bracket for like forever. Since, you know. So, but certainly this is big for Arsenal.
I think we have a chance against Madrid, and if we do get to the finals, knowing that it doesn't look likely that we'll win the Premiership, our boys will devote more time to it and come out.
I think it will be the biggest thing. You know, there's still the second leg to navigate, but then up comes PSG, and PSG is not an easy team. Because it's PSG and Aston Villa, I am going out on a limb to say PSG should have enough firepower to stop Aston Villa, and then we're going to see PSG Arsenal.
That's the same odds that were against us. That they treated us like they're treating Aston Villa now.
Baba, Arsenal, Real Madrid they've been rubbish all through the season. Real Madrid before this game, they had already
the three best.
How many games had they lost in the Champions League? AC Milan beat Real Madrid at home. Who are these small boys in?
No, that loss was because of injuries.
Lille beat Real Madrid. Are rubbish this season. They were rubbish last season as well. But it was the Champions League. They managed to play very negative football, and then they had this spirit, defensive football. From the moment they were able to play,
I think it was one of the things that worked against Vinicius winning.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. They were able to. The moment they were able to beat City, so the spirit just came up. This year is different. They are rubbish. Watch PSG. PSG plays far better football.
We will have this conversation again
in the semi-final.
Do you remember what you told me the last time about when we had that podcast? Do you remember what you said?
Yes, about Real Madrid.
You said you're going to whitewash us.
I was an idiot. but again, and I mean that most literally. You know what they call a fool's hope. You just have that fool's hope that you know your team is rubbish. Please,
it's a given. You know that spirit of it's a given.
You know,
it's a walkover for you.
I don't see one game, and this is me talking as a Real Madrid fan. Remember when Real Madrid did the double and then the treble?
The double, yeah.
No, not treble. The back-to-back Champions League. So when Real Madrid won it in 2014, it was La Decima. It was a big deal. It was Carlo Ancelotti who won it. I was happy my team won it.
And you thought Ancelotti would do it again?
No. I thought that Ancelotti was an opportunist.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought Jose Mourinho has set up Real Madrid to dominate for a long time. He had issues, and he was trying to go against the narrative because Real Madrid is the world's most pampered team. Everybody who wears that shirt thinks that they have arrived, and they are very badly behaved many times. And I'm, as a fan of Real Madrid, I think there's a whole lot of rubbish that goes on. Not that I don't blame Jose Mourinho for his management at Real Madrid.
But do you think? No, let me interrupt. Do you think that the absence of that defense line is one of the problems that Real Madrid now has?
Yes, it's a part of it. But to be honest with you, Real Madrid have never been super strong defensively.
No. When Ramos, or what's his name?
Yeah, Ramos and Pepe.
When they come against you in the attack, you think twice.
Yeah, I know. It was like Hierro and Helguera in the days of the Galacticos.
Okay.
They were massive.
Okay.
Defensively, Real Madrid were rubbish.
Okay.
But what gave them the oomph and gravitas they had is that they could outscore you. It didn't matter. But you see, that thing always has a dead. I feel unless something is done drastically.
There will be a decline.
Baba, think about this. You think about this for a moment. Real Madrid with their Galacticos, all that era, they could only win one Champions League. In 2002,
True.
2002,
They were spoiled for choice.
when they beat Bayer Leverkusen in the final. Guess what happened the next season? 2023, they got to the semi-final, they were knocked out.
Knocked out, yeah.
The next season, 2024,
They were knocked out.
they got to the quarterfinals, they were knocked out. Then 2025, they knocked them out in the round of 16. 2026, Arsenal knocked them out in the round of 16. 2006. 2007, round of 16. 2008, round of 16. 2009, round of 16. It was, I think, in 2010 that they managed to get back to the quarterfinals. And I kind of feel that they are coming back full circle unless they have the players. Again, the Galacticos didn't do much other than, and this present crop
So
has,
do you think they need a new coach or they need new team?
it's obvious. I have a problem, and in all, I will tell you, I was just saying that when Real Madrid won the third Champions League, the third back-to-back, I think it was a disservice to football because Real Madrid didn't play well that season. I also think that when Real Madrid won the Champions League last year, it did Real Madrid more harm than good.
Absolutely.
Because that's the reason why Ancelotti said. I think Ancelotti has been the yes man at Real Madrid.
Yes, but I think that one person you should bring back to Real Madrid is Mourinho.
I think if they want to plug, now again, I do not know whether football has left Mourinho.
No, it
but
hasn't.
I think
It hasn't. He's
a
just looking for the real plug.
result-oriented person,
Yes.
maybe on a 2-year contract, while you look more
For somebody else.
long-term.
Yes.
I think more Mourinho
And
than
if
even
Mourinho
Zidane.
comes now, Mourinho will want to prove that he is still the special one.
Yeah, I think he will win. He'll probably win it
He'll
next
win.
year.
But they'll be ready to give him the players that he wants.
Yeah, which will be crazy because he'll probably ship some people
He will
out,
ship plenty people
however
out.
big they are.
What's this defender you got from Chelsea? The last one.
From Chelsea? Is it not Rudiger?
Rudiger.
Oh, Eden Hazard?
No, Rudiger.
Rudiger, yeah.
He will send that one first out.
Mourinho likes players.
Mourinho may not keep Alaba.
Mourinho likes players like Rudiger, players who are passionate and who are rugged.
Hardworking.
The problem with Rudiger right now is that
Age is one.
age is telling. He's played the season through injuries and is going to have long-term knock-on effects. At his age, this season might end his career if care is not taken because he may not
He has
recover
one more
fully.
injury.
And Madrid may not even have enough backup to let him rest adequately. So I think I think it will be problematic for them.
But to lose to Arsenal 3 unreplied goals.
Yeah, it's the height of it. I think it's worse than losing 4 goals by 4 at home to Barcelona. If you really ask me, and check the record of the season, man. Madrid are not scoring goals.
They're not.
They're not scoring goals.
Barcelona. Everybody's playing one goal.
Yeah, they're not scoring goals, and their defense is crap. So it may be the turn of the tide. They have enough quality. They just need somebody who has fresh ideas. If they have somebody who has fresh ideas, I think they can halt the rot. Otherwise, we could just as well move on. But congratulations to us.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. You know, before you then play this clip of this our conversation, you first played that one where you said you were going to trash us, so they understand that you are repentant and you're totally repentant.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, and then they'll probably title it "Femi's an idiot." Let's talk about more serious.
Okay,
things.
so the other thing that I would want to speak about really is the fact that we have a country that is permitting corruption and allowing it to fester in a way that it affects every other thing. Declaration of assets is important. You don't declare assets. So you see somebody who comes into governance as a pauper And when I say pauper, I'm comparing it to what they live with. The guy is a struggling guy. He gets into the Senate. Next thing, when he leaves the Senate, he has 2 malls, massive house, properties everywhere, and has enough money to run for governorship. Now, governorship in Nigeria, okay, to win a senatorial seat is now between 1.2 billion, 1 or 2 billion. You need that to win a Senate seat. To win a House of Reps, you need another 1 billion. You need about 1 billion to win House of Reps. State House of Assembly, you need about 500 M to win that. To win governorship, you need, depending on the state, for Delta, you need about like 20. For Rivers, you need about 25 billion. For some of those states in the north, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 billion. So it's a capital intensive project, which is what is driving the corruption in our country right now. So every time somebody is in office, it is not education the person is thinking of. Except if whatever he wants to do in education will provide some money that they can leverage on when the time for election comes. Until the government is transparent enough to be accountable to everything that they do. How they spend the money, how they make the money, how they spend the money, what they spent it on, why they spent it. We'll continue to go around in circles. The anti-corruption drive that Buhari promised us, he didn't deliver. In fact, some people still argue that Buhari's regime was even more corrupt than Jonathan's. We need to get to a point where, so this is my, you can cut this and put it and let them come for me, this one. What I think, and this is what I'm suggesting, is that when any corrupt politician is caught with his hand in the till, everything he owns should be taken from him. And if anyone is found to have kept monies for him, or you've aided and abetted the corruption that enriched that politician, everything should be taken from you. If that happens, you will see that governors, presidents, and others will begin to sit up.
Won't it make them even more clever at hiding the things they are cornering?
Be clever. But when you are caught and you've caught about like 3, 4, 5 people, things will change. I think that there's a point I wanted to make that just skipped me now. Most times, our politicians believe that the reason some of them even want to go into office is because they know that money will be shared from the federal account. So they don't go in as, I want to contribute to this state. Now they're clamoring for state creation. Most of those states that will be created, right? If this regional project of geopolitical zones make your money, pay 20% of whatever you make to the federal allocation, some states will not take off. Because there are some states, their internally generated revenue is zero. Why I say zero is because with all the taxes and everything that we compared to what they get from federal government. So federal government is giving you 800 million every month. Your state is generating 30 to 100 million every month. If they then say, go and fund your state from what you generate, only people who are business minded and development driven will go run states. The reason some of these governors are in business of politics is because they know that once they get into that office, every month something must come that would help them take care of salaries, live the kind of life they want to live. Which is why Lagos State could survive at the time that they call the bluff of the federal government. You are not giving us money, keep it. They know that they will get it later, but for now, keep it. And Lagos State could run on its own. How many states can run on their own? Delta, Rivers, Ogun, Kano, Kaduna, Taraba, Yobe, Jigawa. Some of those states will find it hard to survive until we then get to a point where we then say, yes, truly, if you want to be a state governor, you must generate your funds and pay this small amount of that fund to the federal government so the federal government can do anything that it wants to do. This country will continue to be as corrupt as it is.
The military imprisoned many of these politicians, even literally killed some of them. But there's still corruption everywhere.
The thing is that after the military does whatever it does, after the military did whatever it did, when the civilian government took over, they granted amnesty to most of the people that were locked up at the time. And they just to have access to their war chest. That's why I'm saying, once you have found the person corrupt, take everything. You know all those plea bargains that we hear of?
Yeah.
Let's not have plea bargains anymore.
Still 100 billion, plea bargain 10.
5 even. You know, and the government is okay, we collected 5 billion. The government brags about recovering 2 billion, 3 billion from a governor that was collecting nearly 1 billion every month. And the wise governors, without mentioning states, the wise governors do not touch federal allocation, especially when they generate when they have internally generated revenue that is heavy. They don't touch federal government's allocation. When the federal government allocation comes, they spend it. But you see that locally generated revenue, the internally generated revenue, is their money. Because EFCC won't come after you for spending internally generated revenue, except the assembly and the states decide to come after you. Otherwise, your internally generated revenue is yours. But you see that federal allocation, most governors even add to it and spend everything that is sent to them from federal allocation because they know that the government can't come after them. So until that is done, corruption will continue to thrive.
We spent an hour and a half already. Just going back to what we talked about, education, and I want your advice on a number of things. One, do you recommend that parents allow their very young kids, to speak pidgin? Most parents do not allow pidgin for their kids, but should 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds be allowed to communicate in pidgin?
Okay, so the thing is, parents should see it as a child being bilingual and surviving on the streets of Lagos.
So some parents fear it might interfere with their English.
I think that for some of us, except for few, most of us that came from Warri, that first got our first taste of speaking English was pidgin English. When we're in school, when you then get a proper education, you know what the difference is. You know it's just like a child knowing what is good and bad. Teach the child to know what is good and bad. And don't you know, there's a proverb that says, don't tell somebody to close their eyes when bad things are passing. Good things will pass and they will not. So the discernment, the spirit to discern properly and know that this is good and this is not good is best. A child that knows his tenses knows when something is wrong, when you speak something that is wrong, when you speak an incorrect phrase, when you say an incorrect statement or an incorrect phrase. It doesn't stop us from speaking pidgin English, because the thing is, my daughters, okay, it's only the first one understands pidgin very well. My boys struggle to speak pidgin English, so now they speak it like they are bragging. They say, how far, daddy, how now, how everything, and I'm like, what's that? She said, Adeyana.
And then you try to engage them, and they hit
and then
a
when you then
roadblock.
start speaking, they say, okay, so okay,
Easy,
it's not that
easy,
bad.
easy,
yet.
man.
It's not that
Easy,
bad.
bruv.
It's not that bad yet. It's not that bad. You know, but I think that, like my daughter now, Valerie, the first pidgin she learned is "nah so," because the mom says that a lot. You know, you tell her something and she will "nah so."
Nah so.
And you know, "nah so" is negative connotation. It's like "Go Shilo, run Nijari," you know. And so she's very happy.
It's like, yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, right. You know. One time, and this is Valerie, they were playing in the house, and they were playing the PlayStation 4 at the time. PlayStation 3, sorry. And they were playing this combat game. And this boy that came to visit from Ajegunle was playing with them, and they were beating him. And the boy, because they've learned some cheat modes.
Yeah.
And they were beating him up. They played with this one, 2 goals. Played with this one, they killed all his team. And he was like, how? So he then told them to play another game. And one of the boys said, "You wish." And the boy fought with him. And when they came, he said, "What was it?" He said, the boy from Ajegunle said, "Bros, I said, make we play game. In they call me Winch." And I said, "Did you call him a witch?" He said, "No, I didn't call him a witch. That he said we should play." And I said, "You wish." He said, "You see, you don't call me again."
you winch. That's funny.
So I now told him, I said, so I now told them to leave because I didn't want to embarrass him any further. I said they should. So they were laughing and giggling and walked away. And I told him, I said, "You see, when you say, when they tell you say you wish, it be like maybe you tell somebody something, come to say, not today." The boy say, "Hey,
it's tough.
I don't mash line." See your cameraman laugh. You guys,
this one will make you laugh. Just building on what you just said, and this was me, a professional, my earlier years or whatever in broadcasting, and this Oga Pata, like like back in the day, deputy director who was just next to the Oga Pata, and the guy in charge of programs. I ran into trouble one day because I got a query. It was an admin query, and the query accused me of missing a meeting, which was actually a presentation clinic. And back in the day, presentation clinic was a ritual that you dared not miss. However, I was entitled to miss that presentation clinic because the policy was that if you were on the night shift, on the night before the presentation clinic, you were excused. So I was on the night shift. So in the morning, I'd gone home. Now something happened and too many people didn't attend that presentation clinic. So the deputy director of programs was so upset. He asked the deputy director administration to issue
a query.
Admin query was a big deal because it goes into your record, your file. So someday it will stop you from a promotion. And this was Federal Civil Service, media, Federal Civil Service. And so it was a blanket thing. Send admin query to everybody
that did not show up.
Absent. And I got caught up in it. And I wasn't supposed to. So when I got the query,
you responded.
And I responded. I started by saying, your query dated so, and this came to me as a rude shock.
Bombastic element.
It was that phrase, rude shock. It almost cost me my job because the deputy director of programs was offended that I used the phrase rude shock. He saw rude. And his interpretation was that I said that they were rude to me. And I remember him saying, he called a meeting and he said, all you small boys, these were his words, because you go to university and learn Tau English. That was the phrase. Tau English was probably the first time I was hearing it in my entire life. You think you say that we were rude to you? And here I was like, it almost cost me my job. In fact, he recommended my sack. Fortunately, I think the overall Oga saw it.
I was like,
I remember just took the thing and put it under, but I almost lost my job. So it was like, how do you explain to Oga that saying that this thing came to me as rude shock does not mean that you were rude to me? It just expresses the degree of how shocked I was. Because why am I getting a query for? And then I was ordered to withdraw the query. And that's what made it worse. Because I was summoned to his hospital. And he told me, he said, if not for your bosses, because there were other boss or guys that were, you know, between me and him. If not for your, in fact, my boss, who was my GM then, this wonderful lady, was literally crying because she felt
didn't want to let you
this
go.
boy is gone. And then he said, if not for this, your two bosses here begging for you, I would not have allowed you to withdraw this query.
The query.
And me,
No, the response to
your response to the
the
query. And me being so young and foolish, I said, who said I wanted to withdraw it, sir? I don't want to withdraw it. That's my response to the query, sir. If you want me to withdraw it, please withdraw the query. And the man said to me, I will show you.
You were not sacked.
I was almost sacked. In fact, I was almost sacked.
You meant that he was rude. That means that you...
No. I didn't mean he was rude.
No, but you're telling him to withdraw his own query.
No, but I wasn't going to, you weren't going to accuse me of something that would affect me in future, put it in my file, and then I will now say, I am sorry, I will not do it again.
Yeah, Femi.
I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, I was really fortunate because again, that was the thing. And maybe because back in the day,
any of you that played that because he has said that he was but again, it was wrongful query. I did not do anything wrong, and I was supposed to say I was sorry. What was worse was that I did say, I'm surprised. Why are you accusing me of something I didn't do? If it was going to cost me my job, I was going to happily live. There was someone in NTA that told Tony Radia, oh, please.
Did they get sacked? The person
NTA was big.
Yes.
Still big.
Yes. Tony Radia back in the day.
The person got a promotion and was sent to either Damaturu, NTA Damaturu, or somewhere like that. And when he called,
and that's because it's not so easy to sack you in the civil service.
Yes,
it's not so easy.
To ask why he was posted to Damaturu, he said, oh, please, go and resume. Now, people who then, which is why education is very important. Mm-hmm. There was a comedian, so Teju, Babyface, and I were dropping him off. He had an event. So we got to that Falomo place and he came down from the car. We're going to my office then in Eleganza. And as he came, he had a show at Fantasyland. So as we dropped him at Falomo so he could go to Fantasyland, I said, break a leg.
Why you did swear for me?
I didn't see the guy for and this is guy that used to come to our office regularly. Mm-hmm. I didn't see him for 3 months or so. Then I saw him at one party. People were greeting me and he walked off. And so I was asking him, I said, is that not so and so? He said, the guy is beefing you that you are planning for him to die. I said, how? He said, the guy said he was going for an event and you told him to break a leg. So I told the person, I said, but you know what break a leg is? I said, hey, but you know the guy. You know they wish people bad now. So I'm not looking at the guy that was telling me, so you don't know what break a leg is? He said, I dey play football now, I know. So he was trying to make me understand. I said, but I dey play football now. So if the person break leg, this work that we're doing.
It's irresponsible for me to be laughing like this.
So I told. So and then I called Teju. I said, Teju, do you remember that day that we dropped that guy and I told him to break a leg? So he was trying to remember who. And I told him the guy. He said, oh, yes. When I told Teju, for over 2-3 minutes on the phone, our conversations would just go on. Teju would be like, break a leg. Break a leg. it's like you tell somebody, you say, "Oh, I lost my dad," and then somebody comes and says, "Oh, how are you?" Say, "I was just consoling her. Her dad kicked the bucket."
Mm.
And I say, "You are trivializing my dad's death." You know, well, it's
It's tough, isn't it?
it's tough.
Communication.
I told one taxi driver that took me to launching Biloxi. There was this Biloxi.
You were wishing this guy well, man. I telling him to break a leg.
So Biloxi had an event and I had car issues. So I took a cab. The Baba that took me, we now got to the government was complaining that if he knew that the place was this far, because it was in Agbara Estate, if he knew that this place was this far, he won't come. So I now paid him. He said I must give him something extra. I said, no problem. So I'll give you, but I have to go and get the money from somebody at the event. And I said, so I was telling somebody, I said, this individual that I was talking to, but an individual.
Baton. It's your father that is an individual.
Yeah. So
they hold me. You look at me and decide I'm an individual.
Kilo Akpobome.
Yeah.
That mo sọ ní kó adowo sí. O sọ ní pé èmi individual. Yeah, individual.
All your family. They are all individuals.
So the guy was now trying to tell me that individual is not me. So to say individual. So ogbori ni. And now actually then I went and brought money and gave to him. So he now got inside the car and was going there. Individual.
like saying what can
like, yes, individual. So, and this is after giving him the money. Oh. So the guy didn't say anything. The guy now said, is there really anyone in this country, in this day and age, that doesn't know that the word individual is a person or a fellow or a human being? That education.
You'll be shocked. Or maybe we should just speak pidgin and spare ourselves the trouble.
No. if we all spoke pidgin,
yeah,
there's some monies you charge.
Not
you have to speak English.
Not be pidgin you make your money. This man, no.
No. For me, it was. So most of the terms at the time, when we started stand-up comedy, I quickly understood that the corporate world earned more money than the pidgin events. The people who spoke pidgin to were middle class, were lower class, But when somebody invites you to come and do something for DEFCON Bank back then,
or the presidential ball,
the presidential dinner, state functions, because of the kind of people they would have invited, members of the diplomatic corps, captains of industry, you don't resort to pidgin. So I knew that very well. When I did my billboards back then, I had 3 billboards. One at the Foreshore Towers that faced that road that came from Old Ikoyi. Then the one at where Civic Center is right now, facing that road that came from 1004. And then the one in front of Marina. Those billboards at the time, 40 sheets billboards, they call them. They were costing me about like 120K each. Otuma was the name of the guy Otunya was the guy that gave me those billboards. He asked me, he said, what kind of business do you do that you wanted to take billboards? I said, stand-up comedy. He said, there are people who run advertising agencies and insurance companies. They don't have money for billboards. So why would you take billboards? I said, because of the kind of market that I wanted to attract. So I knew what I was going for. The mother of Moses prepared Moses in the best of all robes because she knew who she wanted
to attract.
If it was not for the princess, you drop Moses anywhere for anybody to pick up. And she went to great lengths to make sure that Moses was presentable enough for the mother to accept him.
To find him adorable.
So when you, what was that thing they said? Dress like you want to be addressed.
True.
All right. So that's the event that they invite me to. I won't even do jokes. From the beginning of the event to the end, I won't do jokes. Sometimes the client will then come and say, hey, is it possible to? I say, you didn't pay for jokes.
Didn't pay for jokes.
You wanted straight MC. When we were negotiating, I told you MC and comedy together is 5 million. You said no, that you wanted just MC and you paid 3 million. So I'll give you your straight MC. So that one did not go down well with a lot of them. But at least they then understood that, okay, next time we invite him, we must tell him to add comedy.
It literally raised your worth and your bargaining power. And the audience loved everything. I remember audiences screaming, Alibaba yab me. Alibaba yab me. I've never seen that kind of thing before.
Yeah.
Like, it was a whole lot of yab me. And
it was, I think that time...
People would probably pay you to yab them. If you put a price to it.
They would. But you see now, you have some people who, okay, like Akinyele. Alex Akinyele. Alex Akinyele. So Alex Akinyele was the minister for sports.
True.
So we had an event, and he had a PA who got offended because I compared Alex Akinyele to Jim Nwobodo. I said Jim liked to be like upper class. And so when Nigeria scored a goal at the time, say, oh, Finidi George lays the pass and Yekini scores. Nwobodo go, Nwobodo will go, that's good, that's really good. I said, but when Akinyele became minister, if Yekini scores, you say, he loved it.
Yeah.
Akinyele himself loved it. Now, I stepped down the stage and his PA comes to me. I do not like that joke one bit. You cannot make my minister look like a street urchin. What nonsense is that? As he was still scolding me, people were telling him, oh, Paul Bassi and Mutiu, the journalists,
Mumuni
Alao, were telling me it's okay. It was the complete sports event. It's okay. I know. He was just trying to just liven up the room. He didn't mean, no. I don't like her. It's disparaging. But and here comes Akinyele.
The disparaged.
He said, Ali, joke wole baje. So I said, thank you. So I said, you banning me. You know. That's and call the PA. Yeah, by number. Now say take his number. I'll send something to him later. And Mumini looked at him. Pobasi had left at the time. So Mumini Alao looked at him, smiled. He asked me for the number. I gave it to him. And we walked off. So you see, sometimes you yab some people. And then when people hear me yab people, they think that it's because I just feel like rubbishing them. No. I sometimes already have a relationship with these people. And I can tell them what I'm telling them in public because I told them in private. The kind of things that I say to Obasanjo are some of the things that I said to him before. And he also, if he sees me, he throws the first punch. There was one time he, on the order of protocol, the president speaks last and nobody speaks again. So when he finished speaking, he said he should take the national anthem, that this event is over. That if Alibaba gets the microphone now, he'll now respond to everything that he has said. So he then finished. And I said, okay, yes, thank you. Bye-bye. We're all leaving. Let's go. So I said, no, sir, we still have, he said, we are finished, though. We are finished. And that kind of relationship is built on knowing thin line between being funny and being offensive. You don't want to offend anybody. You're like, I get invited back there to go do some shows in Kaduna, and I tell a joke, and I'm looking at the governor, and he goes, then I know that I'm nearly off track. All right, but in all, I still manage to make sure that, and having spent nearly 40 years, very soon it'll be 40 years. I know in 2 years it'll be 40 years. I know when to draw the line. I know when not to offend anybody. And even when you offend them or tell them to go to hell, they'll be looking forward to it, because the way you put it. Like the time that I said Obasanjo was stingy. Or the time that I yapped Akigbe, when Akigbe was governor. Or was it Raji Rasaki, when he was governor of Lagos, or Marwa, or some of all those people. And then, so I plied my trade during the military era. All right?
Which wasn't easy, man.
Which wasn't easy. So I learned the ropes at the time.
So we need to round off now. But since we're finishing with comedy, you are the grandfather of comedy in this country.
Allegedly.
Yes, most people agree. Almost everybody agrees. So 2 quick questions. You can do 1-word answers or just explain why. Besides you, who's your favorite comedian in Nigeria?
There are quite a lot. So it's
hard. Don't give me a lot.
No. I'm not being political. It is that, you can't peg the comedians and pigeonhole all the comedians, because all of them have different strengths. There's an Akpobome that I like to watch. There's a Destocker that I like to watch. There is an O.V. Godwin that doesn't speak pidgin that I like to watch. There is a Godons that I like to watch, that his comedy is nearly aggressive. There is, just like Akpobome, but they're on different streams as well. There's a Basket Mouth that I like, the kind of intelligent jokes that he tells. There's a Bovey who has blended everything well, and he's a soul runner on his journey, And it's hard to find people who do their jokes like that. There is also a new kid on the block that has blown my mind totally, and he's called Forever. All right? So, with the mix of all these boys, it's hard to then say, and there's some boys that are coming from the East now, like a Monica. There's another chubby guy that I'm trying to, there's this guy, Serikin Daria, who's in Hausa boy kind of jokes that he does, Hausa flavored kind of jokes that he does. So there are so many of them. It's like trying to pick. Okay, so it's not like trying to pick the GOAT, whether it is Messi or Ronaldo. It's like trying to pick the best midfielders. When you say you want to pick the best midfielders, you'll be lost. Because there are plenty.
What are the parameters?
What are the parameters? Is it dribbling skills? For me, one of the best midfielders, attacking midfielder, is Pogba. People have said, no, I know what that guy has done. So people...
He won't make my cut. But if you told me about Xavi...
Well, yes. Was that short guy in Kente?
N'Golo Kante.
N'Golo Kante. He's small. His work rate is super.
In the mold of Makalele, but
exactly.
You could almost say an upgrade going forward.
A taller version, right?
Yeah.
So a shorter version of Makalele. But then you look back and be like, okay, Ndidi is building himself into that, but just that age is not on his side, But Ndidi is...
It's not going to happen. Ndidi, drop that Ndidi argument you're making.
Okay. So
I thought you were going to talk about Patrick Vieira.
No, those. No. You're not talking of. Okay,
well,
Patrick Vieira. Good.
Yeah,
Patrick
so
Vieira.
holding midfielder.
Yeah.
And a box to box midfielder.
Yes.
How did we start talking football again?
Because that's one sport that I still play till now.
The lessons are life's lessons, aren't they?
And the fact that it gave us accommodation back in the days in the university, because you went to Nuga, your name was put down before you even came to school.
Yeah.
That you have accommodation, and you got accommodation through year 2, year 3, then year 4 because you play for school.
If you played for the school,
you know, and then if you just manage to add 1 or 2 more sports, you are irreplaceable. You know.
Before you were totally off it, who's your list? I was going to say who's the one comedian you can't stand, but maybe that would be extreme. Who's your least favorite? Maybe there is one that you really can't stand.
There are about 3 of them, and they have no decorum. They insult sensibilities. You try to correct them, they won't hear. You send them to a corporate event, and they do dirty jokes. And the reports get to you, and you're like, oh boy, they called me and said that you did it. They're like, bros, I beg, it's not. And one of them, one time I said, somebody called me and complained that you picked on their chairman and you said very derogatory things about his wife, because the wife is on the plus side. And he said that if a race happens now, and everybody has to carry their wives and run. This one now, you can't carry this woman and run. And I was like, that's below the belt. And he was like, bros, I beg. And told somebody that I'm saying that because he's shining. You know, so to put it like that, comedians who have no barriers, comedians who do dirty jokes, comedians who have no sense and decorum, and think that everything is a joke, you know, and don't know where to draw the line. There are some who fit into these bills, plenty, you know, but there are these 3 guys. If I mention their names now, it will not be like you want their careers to die. But they know who they are. In fact, when you post this video, there are people who will come and write their names.
That would be interesting.
Comments.
I would like to see those names.
No. There are people who write their names under the comments and tell you, oh, so and so. And their careers really, it's not flying.
Comme ci, comme ça?
Yeah, it's not flying. And when you then try to talk to some of them, they feel like, what do you know? Okay. So we'll let that be. But between that, I see a lot of comedians who have taken the baton and run with it to the point that I'm always proud to be part of whatever they're doing. You can see that these guys did not only get the full briefing, they're removing the roofing. They're like, if bros pushed it to this point, let's push it across and further. And they're making me proud. This is a business that we got in at a time that people will be like, please, you're the first to go and last to get on the list. Somebody's plan. You know, back then there were no event planners. It was always committees. So when the committee is planning an event, the committee then decides, oh, let's have this, and then they're not okay. So, is it possible to have a comedian? You are last on the list. And then when they now say, okay, we've overshot the budget by 30,000, remove this comedian first. That's how it was. Up to the point that we then built it to a point where they call you, we need you for so and so event. You say, I'm not available on Saturday. And they say, okay, what of Sunday?
We're willing to move the event.
They move the event.
Yeah.
Or they say, we have 3 dates that we're working on. Which of these dates it's okay with you? And you then say, okay, so and so date. They say, okay, please put us down for that date. You know? Or the day that you say, okay, I have another event that day. If you get somebody to sit in for me, I can join you later. And they say, that's okay. That's how much we have worked. That's how hard we have worked. And it is not just... Now, I made it clear to all the comedians that have let me mentor them. And I say that let me mentor them with all sense of responsibility. That what we do is service provision. We're providing service delivery. We're delivering service. If you're funny, if you're a dancer, if you're a singer, whatever talent, creative talent you have, until somebody wants it as a service, you can't make money. And so you have to groom yourself to a point where you can provide that service. And it is when you're providing that service and meeting the needs of anybody, customer, client, or whatever you call them, that's when you then make money. So it's important for us to not forget that we're in a service delivery business, even when we're doing comedy. Because somebody says, oh, we have a wedding. We need somebody that can keep the audience for 20, 30 minutes. But that one-off responsibility that has been given to you, do it well. Because every time you do any event well, it's a platform for another one. And you then hold on the pedigree and the heritage of people like me, of Mohamed Danjuma, of Tony St. Ike, of John Chukwu, and all the people that were before us, of Benga Deboye. Because failing to do that is that you've just watered down all the efforts that we put in.
Sounds like advice you'll give to any young person coming up, whether in comedy or in business or in technology or whatever these days.
Yeah, because most times everybody feels that some of the people that even come into this sector, this comedy field, feel like if you just buy 20 copies of Night of 1,000 Laughs DVDs and learn the jokes, then you are home and dry. All right? Forgetting that spontaneity is actually the holy grail of comedy. Spontaneity is the holy grail. As I'm here now, if somebody calls me that next door, somebody's having an event and can you come do 30 minutes of comedy, I'll walk into the place and walk out with my money. So it's not about the flamboyant life, the kind of car you drive, the shoes you wear, the look that you have. It's about the content that you deliver. So the service still has to be delivered well. And which is why I mentioned some of all those other comedians now. They're doing very well and they're making us proud.
You're not called the grandfather of Nigerian comedy for nothing. All the work that you've done and the ones you keep doing with your January 1 concert, your Alibaba spontaneity. Thank you for the memories, Alibaba. It's highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Always a great conversation with you, Baba. Thank you.
Real Madrid.
Oh, before we go, I need to throw this in. Skit making.
Okay.
What's your thought on skit making in Nigeria? My producer has been on.
Okay, so skit making is like football. You have people who play midfield, you have people who play defense, you have people who play attack. They are all working towards making sure that people are happy and laughing. I can't say the person who is playing attack now is more important than the person who is playing defense. They have their jobs and their roles to do. So skit making, especially during COVID, grew because people have devices and you can enjoy those comedies in capsules. But you see, live stand-up comedy is a different ball game. It is not something, roll, cut, do it again. Yeah, shoot it from the beginning, which is different. Spontaneity and stand-up comedy are different from skit making, though the purpose is still to elicit laughter. But they're all different. It's like dodo, plantain chips are all part of a delicacy, but they all go through different processes.
You can only eat rice with one and not the other.
So it just so happens that Boli is another part of the plantain product, right? You can't now begin to hawk Boli in traffic, but you can hawk plantain chips. It doesn't make plantain chips more important than Boli. Because when you still get some good bully, well roasted, at the time that you're buying that, if somebody says take plantain chips, you'll be like, no, that's not what I want now. This is what I want. Or like you mentioned, you want to eat rice, and then they're serving and somebody now says, oh, take some plantain chips. You'll be like, I want dodo. All right. So it's all different, right? But the final purpose is to make sure that everybody laughs. And some of the most talented skit makers are right now on the, like Sabinos, like Funny Bros, like the Gogongwongo guy,
Yeah.
you know, who has also been on Spontaneity.
Really?
Yes, he's been on Spontaneity. There are quite a lot of comedians that are there. Shaggy, all of them that are doing this job of skit making. They're doing very well. They're making, once in a while, if I think that there's something that could be made into a skit, whether it's MC Lively or anybody, I'll shoot the person a test and say, I think you can make a skit with this one. It would be really funny. All right. It's a community. If you notice, all of us that are comedians, our camaraderie is even much better than you have in music.
Which leads me to the other question I want to ask. Altercations. I know you have mediated so many.
But you see, most times you then come through with letting them know that we didn't get here by fighting with each other. When a comedian has an event, everybody shows up there.
Yeah.
I remember one time that Basket Mouth used to have his show, Humor Unlimited, at Fantasyland every month. We're coming back from an event in Muson Center. And as we're coming, it started raining. And AY said, bros, then we're living in Lekki Phase 1. And he said, bros, today na AY Basket Mouth show and this rain. So, and no Fantasyland was open. So we made a U-turn at the gate of where Lekki Bridge has not been built at the time. So we made a U-turn and drove back to Fantasyland. When we got there, people were outside complaining that they should give them their money back. This one, this one. And we came down and we started pacifying everybody and said, just calm down. The rain will stop. When the rain stops, we're going to have a great show. You guys just find a way, just sit back in your cars and let the rain just stop. We're going to have a great show. This is just like 9 p.m. By the time this rain stops, we know this rain will stop. And when it stops, we'll have a great show. And when it finished, I went. So the more comedians that came from with the Dawn, JD, all of them that were with me at the time. And we all went and did the show. Great show. And when we finished, we took pictures and we left. Now, we support each other. When there is a friction with two comedians, you find that the third parties are the ones that make it get out of hand. The things that they say to this other comedian, oh, this is what the person said. Can you imagine what this person said? That's what then. But when you then get to the nitty gritty and say, I think this is a problem. You guys need to go beyond. Look at AY, Basket Mouth, and I Go Die. They're having a show together at a hotel. We'll resolve these things, but if you let the third parties come in, they want to make our industry just like other industries where people are looking at drive-by shooting, you know.
Have been very high-profile ones. There was a Julius Agu and
no. So the thing is, it's still all of the aggravated issues, but we resolve everything.
Everything is fine because
there was another time Julius had a show in London, and we were somewhere, and Benga Denka called me and said, Julius' show is today. I said, it's true. Let's go there and surprise him. We're in London. We went there, surprised him. And when he had this issue,
the health issue,
well, supported him. We don't have those shoot me.
Certainly not a Tupac Biggie kind of thing.
No. We resolve issues, and with time, we then get to know that it wasn't all worth it. But I like the fact that people are concerned and then call you how you need to intervene in this. I say, so before you call, you know that we have already intervened. So it probably could be something that they have to walk through by themselves.
Yeah.
What needs to be said and done have been done. We have big bosses, bigger bosses, the RMDs and all people who could come in. And don't forget that the bulk of the guys who are the main guys in this comedy are from the South. Or the
Not a doubt.
worry and that's axis. So we know how to resolve some of these things by ourselves.
Brilliant community, and it tells the way the community has grown. Everybody pulls together, that support, and that's why it's growing so well. And it's down to the job of some of the elder statesmen in the community.
Yeah. So if you see pulling the young ones up has been something that we all, like I told you, Basket Mouth has, in fact, that needs to be mentioned. The role that AY played with his open mic night in discovering a lot of comedians back then. Basket Mouth is doing a lot more of it now with his flatmates.
Yeah.
Giving a platform to as many comedians to entertain people. So they're in your living room every day because of the platform that Basket Mouth has created. It's just like when we started the stand-up comedians competition, Spontaneity. It pulled a lot of comedians together. Comedians came from Uganda, Cameroon, Ghana, and I think one guy came from Tanzania to take part in this competition. So it is about providing that platform. Basket Mouth has brought comedians from Uganda to come perform. It brought from South Africa to come perform. Has brought from America to come and perform. So our platforms, we yield the platforms to a lot of people to spread their tentacles as well. So thank you for that question. I think there was need for us to address that so that people don't think that we are all bickering and going after ourselves.
Well done, Baba.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.